Hello friends, welcome back. My name is Jaspreet and today we're going to be making some really fun and simple Christmas decor items. Now I call these origami Christmas trees or origami decor items, though there's no folding really. It's two slabs that we are attaching together. It's just how they look. They look like it's a kind of a folded origami piece. So that's why I call them that. And the other reason is just easy for me to remember the different kinds of things that I make, so I have to name them something. So they look like an origami tree to me, so I call it an origami tree, and that's what we're going to go with. I don't know what else to call them. So we'll be making some 3D forms from flat slabs as usual, really simple projects, and you can make a whole bunch of them for your markets, for gifts, for your own house. And another thing I want to say here is that, because it's a question I keep getting over and over again, you can use air dry clay and polymer clay as well to make these projects, because these are all decor items. They don't have to be food safe or suitable for liquids and things like that. So they can definitely be made using air dry, polymer, oven bake, all those clays. Also, while I have you guys here, I just wanted to quickly let you know, I had a really great event. It was fantastic. It was completely unexpected, but it was one of my best events till date. And I'm so grateful for all the love and all the beautiful messages that I've been receiving from all of you guys. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for all the encouragement. It does mean a lot. It really kind of keeps you going in moments of doubt and uncertainty. So thank you so much for your support. So this was a really different experience from my regular markets, because in the other markets that I participate in, I'm usually the only maker, or maybe there are a couple of other makers. It's not really a maker's market, but this was very specifically a clay maker's market. So it was a completely different experience, and I'm still processing the whole event, and there's a lot I want to talk about. So I'll probably put it in a email and share that with you guys. Or maybe if you want to see a video, I can talk more about it in a video. Let me know your thoughts, and you can do something accordingly. I think I should stop talking now. Well, that's all about the festival update. Let's just get started with making the pieces. Okay, let me just show you a few different versions of the Christmas tree first. So here's one which I made using this cutter, and I'll show you how I do that. Here's another one. This was a Christmas tree that I drew out on a paper and then cut out the template and then made it into this. And here's another one with a smaller cutter, right? So these are all my 3D origami Christmas trees. I call them origami Christmas trees because though we're not really folding anything here, it's just plain cutting and attaching two pieces together, but it kind of gives a look of an origami piece. So I guess that's the reason I call them that. It's kind of simple for me to remember and also to differentiate between different kinds of Christmas trees that I make. So these are Christmas trees, and this is another one which I made as a tea light holder. So you can actually place your tea light in here. Let me just show you. It's a star-shaped tea light holder, right? And then here's another one, which is the angel tea light holder. Again, this is how it's supposed to be. Now, all of these the process remains the same. And I've made most of them using these cookie cutters, and I'll show you how I do that quickly in a second. So these are relatively simple projects. The process remains the same for all of them. Let's get started, and I'll bring in my slab and we'll get started with making these pieces. All right, so here's my slab of clay. This was rolled to 1/4 of an inch thickness. Now, if you want, you can thin down your slab a little bit more. I'm not going to. I'm just going to start with compressing the slab first. Now, these projects can be made using air dry polymer clay as well, because these are things which are going to be used as decor items. So you can make these with air dry clay as well, because that's a question that I get a lot, because everybody doesn't have access to a kiln for firing. So your oven baked clay, oopsie, and your air dry clay can also work. All right, now that we've compressed our clay, I'm going to add some texture. I'm using my own design rolling pin from Algis Crafts for the texture here. I'm just releasing my clay is sticky. Yeah, that can happen when your clay is really soft and sticky. So when you're adding texture, make sure your clay is soft because that is what is going to give you a nice deep texture. Well, sometimes you see this really fine wood grain texture. I don't like it, so I just take a damp sponge, like a nicely squeezed sponge, and just go over the clay surface like this once, and we're good. Okay, to cut out the different pieces, let's start with the bigger one. So here's my Christmas tree cutter. You can use any of these Christmas tree shaped cutters, doesn't matter. I'm going to take this, place it here, and you have to cut two of each. If you want, you can place a sheet of plastic on top and then cut it out. I just don't do it. So we have this. Let's do the angel. Again, I'm going to take two of these. And then for the top part here, I'm going to take another cookie cutter, which is this one. I'm just taking this one. This is about 2¼ 2.25 inches. Next, let's do a couple of these smaller ones. I don't think I'll get enough here. So I'm taking one here. Oh, can you see? Now, if you want, with this texture at least, if you want, you can actually have, Christmas tree with a little bit of border as well. Maybe I'll do one with that. Anyways, I'm gonna first release the clay. All right, this is done. Now the last thing I'm gonna cut is this flower star shape thing. Now for something like this, when you're looking at a star or a flower shaped cutter, make sure that whatever you're getting, it can sit on 2 feet, because we need something which is stable. Like this guy on its own can sit on 2 feet. Now here's another one. This also can sit like this and it's fine. So just make sure that, I think a six with something with 6 petals works better, like 6.6 petals, whatever you want to call it, works better with the overall look and symmetry. So, all right, so here are all our cutters done. Now, before we assemble them into these 3D forms from flat slabs, what we need to do is a couple of things. I'll add my stamp, I'll clean off the edges and do a few changes. So for example, for the Christmas tree, if you see, now with something like this, if you put these together, both of them have this little trunk here. Now, if you let the trunk be, it will be difficult to balance the tree. It may not be as stable. So what I like to do is, I just like to place both of them together, just line them up one on top of the other, right? So the bases are lined up and I just cut this through so it's nice and flat. This will just make your piece more stable, like it'll not knock, right? If you leave that trunk and even if you try to be really precise, it's quite likely that it might actually be a little wobbly. So I just remove that issue right here. So I did make some with that little trunk and it turned out, I mean, most of them ended up a little bit wobbly. This is what I made last year. So this year I just took the trunks off completely. Okay, that done. I'm going to quickly just clean up the edges here. I am going to clean them up one more time when they're all set up, but for now I'm just giving a quick clean up, okay? And then I'll also add my signature. Now, if you want, see this side is without any texture. Now, if you look at these, there are these sides which have texture and there is this side which does not have texture. If that bothers you, what you can do is place a placemat, put your clay and then add your texture, or you can have your clay between two placemats, like you have a placemat, your clay slab and then another placemat and then roll that, or you can have your placemat, roll it, get the texture, and then on top of that add your rolling pin or whatever stamps or whatever kind of texture you want to add, or you can just leave it texture free as well. There's always that option, right? But I don't mind this. I like this little bit of without texture, looks fine to me, so I don't really add the texture on the other side, but it's a personal choice. You can always add texture, that's what you like. And because I know how this is going to be attached, I'm going to place my stamp, my signature on the side here. And we're going to do this for all the pieces. So for the stars, all I'm going to do is, this is my base and this is my top. So I just have to find a place where I can add my signature where it won't be cut off. So that's all I'm doing here. Again, the same thing, I'm going to just place this on top of each other, line up the bases, and then try and get a straight cut here. Okay. And the same thing with the big tree as well. I am going to line up both of them together here. Just make sure they're lined up. Now this one, if you see, is a little bit tricky because even when I remove the trunk, this area is still a little, it's not completely flat. It's at a little bit of an angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut across from this point all the way to this point here because I need a nice flat base, right? Now we have all of these pieces nice and flat. I know it doesn't look too flat, but don't worry, it should be okay. Now what we're going to do is, before we let them set up, now we can't assemble them into a 3D form till the slabs have stiffened up a little bit. But before we let them sit, what we're going to do is create some cuts where these two pieces can fit into each other. So what I'm going to do is, I usually like to just eyeball it. If you are very particular and you're unsure doing it for the first time, take a scale and then kind of make a straight line. But I'm pretty comfortable with this at this point, so I'm just going to go ahead and make the cuts. Now to make the cut, you first find the center. This kind of looks like the center, more or less, okay? And one cut is going to be at the base. Now for this one, I'm going to cut from the base. Now this is the center. I'm going to take a little bit on this side and a little bit on this side, all right? And the top cut has to be a little over the midpoint. So for example, this is the midpoint, more or less the midpoint of this Christmas tree, somewhere here. I'm going to make my cut slightly over it. Okay, so it just, like I said, I like to just eyeball it at this point. It's okay if it's not very straight. It won't matter much, to be honest. Okay, so this is slightly above the center point of the Christmas tree. Okay, so that is done. I'll let this out. And now for this one, I'm going to make the cut from the top going towards the center. But again, this will be slightly below the center of the tree, right? So this is the center point. I'm going to make the cut slightly below this, right? So again, just find the center here and then the two side cuts. Okay, this is, now this cut has to be at least as thick as your clay. So whatever is the thickness of your clay, this cut has to be at least as thick as that, so that the two pieces can fit in together like this. This is going to now wait and set up a little bit before we can play with it. In the meantime, I'm going to work on the rest of the pieces and do the same thing with all of them. Again, here, this is the center of the base, and this is probably the center for the angel. I'm going to go slightly over it, okay, and make my cuts on the two sides, right, like this. Now for this one, what I'm going to do is for the top, for holding your tea light, right, now this is 2.25 inches in diameter, and you can see that this fits in, but it just about fits in. And you can use a bigger circle, but for me, I like the proportion of this circle with the shape, with the size and shape of the angel. So that's the reason I use this particular dimension. If you want to use a bigger circle, you can do that as well. Now for this, what I'm going to do is just slightly press and bend the sides up very lightly. Okay, so I'm just pressing these scallops and then lifting them up a little bit. We just need a little bit of that curve so that the tea light doesn't slide over. That's it. See, it's as simple as that, right? And then I'm going to just lift it up from all sides. And because I've just pressed at the scallops, the clay has expanded, and that has given me enough room to lift up without decreasing the size, because this is going to shrink quite a bit, right? All right, so this is done. All right, now all of these pieces are going to set up for some time till they become a little bit stiff, where I can actually hold them in my hands and then piece them together, attach them together. Maybe this one I can still try. Let's see. Let's try with this one and see if it works. If it doesn't, then we'll use the other one that we have. So I'm going to take my wire tip tool, dip it in water because my clay is soft. I'm going to just dip it in water and score the insides of the cuts here, both the sides like this. Okay. Then we hold the one with the top cut, place it flat, then bring the one with the base cut and you place this on top of this. Now when you're sliding this in, just open the bottom one a little bit, just open it up a little bit so that's easy for the second piece to slide in. Okay, now once both the pieces have kind of, I mean, they've gone in like this, they've now just turn around to make sure that everything is straight and lined up. Okay, now we start attaching them. Now what happens is when you make that cut slightly higher than the midpoints with both the cases, what happens is that there's enough room for the two parts to kind of sit together like this instead of just getting stuck and not giving you a flat base. That's the main point, the main thing. You have to focus on, you have to make sure that you have a nice flat base. Otherwise, it ends up being like this was one which I made with this cookie cutter, and I did not like clean up this area. So this is slightly wobbly if you see, right? So just making sure that your base is flat, you know, both the slabs of clay are sitting flat on the table. Once you're happy with the way they're sitting and everything is straight, now you start attaching. I'm going to start attaching from the top, these parts. Okay, just press this in like this. Okay, just press the two sides. While you're doing that, you actually get a chance to kind of work on the sides as well. You can just compress them a little bit if you want to. And then for this one, we're going to focus on the base. And you press from the base. I'm not sure if you can see much of it, but it's, like I said, it's a simple technique, not very complicated. Just pressing these. Okay, and then press from the base here, right? My clay is pretty soft, but at least it's sitting nice and flat, right? Once I do that, just lift and tap tap so you have a nice flat base. Now what I'm going to do is I'll bring in my silicone tip tool, and then with this just seal up all these sides. If you want, you can use a banding wheel to kind of move your board around, but I just seal up all the sides. Let me just show you. This is the side which is not sealed yet, right? You see, this is the one which is sealed. I'm going to just seal them up, right? And there you have it. The Christmas tree is ready. There you go. Sweet, simple, doesn't take too long to really make something like this, right? So this is a small one, so we were able to make this right away because didn't have to wait for the clay to dry. Let's try the angel because this is also smaller clay slabs. So ideally you should wait a little bit so that your clay is not too soft and floppy, otherwise that can create a little bit of a problem. Then you lift this guy with the open cut, with the top cut, right? And then bring in this one with the bottom cut, and then I'm just sliding the two in here. I don't know if you can see, so I've just slid the two in here like this, right? Okay, let me just place this here. Okay, clearly this is not balanced because it is kind of falling. So that means that the top part, the second part, hasn't really gone through all the way to the base. Now just open the clay a little bit, the two cuts, and then bring it down. Okay, this looks okay. Now I'm going to just make sure they're all lined up, they're all straight. This is lined up to the center. This one too. Okay, right, everything looks lined up. Now again I'm going to start attaching the top first, the one with the top cut, just pressing the two parts together against the slab. Once you do that, now we focus on the bottom part. Let me just show you. Yeah, you see that the bottom part is open like this, right? This needs to attach. Now again, first placing it here on the board, making sure it's centered. Then we start pressing these in like this. Now for something like this, and even for this, I've made it into Christmas tree which sits. You can actually add a little U-ring on the top and make it into an ornament. Like these nichrome wire U's, right? Just take this. This is high fire wire, so it doesn't burn out in the kiln. And take this and place it somewhere here, like this. And this turns into an ornament, right? Small and cute. You can have that as an ornament. So it's up to you if you want to make it as an ornament. Similarly for the angel, if you want, you can add a little nichrome U here at this stage and make it into an ornament. Alternately, as I'm going to show you, we'll make this into a tea light holder. Okay, once I'm done with this, let me just quickly show you. This is what it looks like. You can see that the sides are uneven. All right, so once we've cleaned the sides up, for attaching the top, again you have to let this set up so that when you attach it, it doesn't just flop. Though it's a small piece, it won't just flip over, but it's, if you want a nice flat surface, it's better to let it set up a little bit. Okay, what you're going to do is, again with some with my wire tool, I'm going to just add, I'm going to score the top here and score the middle here. Okay, and then make sure that you line up. For that, you have to sit down, get to the table level, and then see if it's lined up. So I'm going to just sit down and make sure it's nice and level and flat. This looks good. Now I'm going to clean up everything only once this has set up, not right now. Just making sure this is flat and not tilted onto one side and centered. Okay, let me just show you. This is what it looks like. Okay, so that's done too. And now we're on to the biggest piece here, which is this one. Let's just get done with this as well. Bring this one on top and then slide the two together. Okay, I'm going to first place these, one of the slabs nicely, properly line up, and then focus on the second one. Make sure it's all nicely straight and lined up. Okay, I think this looks good to me. Now I'm going to start attaching. We start with the one with the cut on the top, fixing the top first. Okay, and then we start with the base. Now with this one, you have a nice broad base because you've already made that nice and flat, so it should not be a problem. But again, you can see how the clay is turning a little bit. It's not perfectly straight, and that happens when it's soft. Now, one thing that happened here, and that may happen, and that's okay. We'll just fix it. Good that it happened. Do you see that little bit of that area there? Now, because I was kind of just eyeballing everything, I did make a cut where the two don't really meet. So there's a little bit of this gap here. I don't know if you can see, there's a little bit of gap here. Don't worry, just take some soft clay. Okay, I just take a little bit from the scrap, roll it into a little coil and place it there. And then with my silicone tip tool, I just smooth it out. So So once you fill it on from one side, I think all the others will kind of sort themselves out. But if they don't, take more soft clay, place it in there, smush it and press it in. Once all of that is done, now I can just go back in and straighten everything out. Now to make the cuts here, these cuts, so it's nice and balanced. Honestly, you will have to go in and clean it up a little bit later, but for now what we're going to do is I'm going to place them one on top of the other, exactly how I'm going to attach them, right? So I'm just placing these here. This is how I'm going to attach them. Okay, and now I bring in something like this, like a square cookie cutter. Here's the one I'm using. This is, I think, about 2 inches in width. Okay, you can place this here, kind of centered, and just go through all the way. Okay, and then lift it out and you get the cuts here. Can you see that? We've made the cuts right here. This is one way of doing it. This could be your beginning point, and then you will have to refine it a little bit later with the tea light, making sure that it's nice and flat and actually the tea light doesn't wobble on here. That's it. So now I'm going to let this set up for sure because this is too soft. This clay is too soft. So I'm going to let this set up before I attach them. All right, now this has had some time to set up. It's still pretty soft, but I let it set up for about 10-15 minutes. And I think we can get going for now. Again, the same thing. Here it's very clear this is the top where we cut off and the other two are the bottom. So I'm going to just slide the two pieces together to make sure that they kind of sit. Your clay is not as floppy. It's a lot easier, trust me. But it's kind of getting dark and it's kind of rainy outside and I want to finish this so I can go home before it starts pouring. So that's why the rush. Coming back, I'm going to just line up all the pieces, all the sides, make sure they're nice and straight. Okay, and then start pressing first again the top part here and then focusing on the bottom one. Once you've done this, after this, once you've actually attached the pieces together, you do the same thing. We just clean up the joints here. What we're going to do is take a tea light holder, okay, and place it here. And then get down to the table level where you can see. And what are you supposed to see? Look at. You're supposed to place it here on this, like this, and then make sure that all of these sides of the tea light are sitting on top of the holder underneath, right? All the four sides have to sit there. Otherwise, it's going to be wobbly. So all of these four sides, it has to find a plain surface where it can sit, right? Now, like this, it does look like it's sitting nicely, but I'm going to get down to the table level and make sure that it's nice and flat and balanced. And I might just bring in my banding wheel here. Now here I can see that it's sitting on 3 of these and one of them is off. Because once you attach the pieces, there will be a little bit of a difference. So what I'm doing is because my clay is soft, I'm just actually just pressing it in to make sure it's nice and, flat and makes sense. If you see one piece is too high and it's tilting the tea light or making it a little bit out of balance, just take your clay knife and slice off that excess clay here, right? Again, place it here to check if it sits nicely. Just make sure that it has to sit on all the 4 sides. Let me just show you. I don't know, this might just flop over. Okay, can you see? It's sitting nice and flush on all the 4 sides. That's what you're supposed to avoid, okay? Make sure it's sitting nice and flush on the 4 sides. So that's our snowflake tea light holder done. Now I'm going to let everything set up to a nice leather hard before I clean them up. Once it's at leather hard, for example, this one is pretty soft, still pretty soft, but I can now actually lift it in my hand and just clean off all the edges. Now, I like this process of cleanup later on. It's like meditation for me, so I really enjoy it. If the join is uneven, anything clay crumbs there, just clean them up. Any unevenness, you can take care of it at this stage. Even the base, if you see, there's a gap here, just seal it up. Now these guys I will usually let dry outside. Again, my studio, I am in Singapore. My studio is nice and humid. It rains almost every day. And at this time point, it's not even hot. So for me, it's easy to just let them sit out and they dry slowly. They don't usually warp, but if your studio is really dry or it's hot or it dries really fast, then you can just place, plastic on top and let them dry slowly for a couple of days. I don't think you need to dry them under a cover for too long. And then I bisfire them and glaze. The glazing is fairly simple. This is a brushed on, this is holly green from Spectrum that I just brushed on 2 coats, and it's fairly easy to do. I mean, there's nothing special or different about it. So I'm not going to cover that here. That's all our projects for today. Here are trees. That's the angel ornament. Yeah, for the angel ornament, what you have to do is once it's set up close to a leather heart, take your silicone tip tool and just clean up the slip here. And there you have it. These are all your simple and easy origami Christmas decor pieces. So that's all I have for you this week. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. It is fairly simple and you can use any kind of cutters to make these 3D forms. The only thing you have to remember is that it has to have a stable flat base, or even if it's pointed base, at least there's enough support so it doesn't wobble. That's the only thing you have to remember. Rest, you can use any shapes and any kinds of cookie cutters to make these. All right, I hope you guys have a good weekend. I will see you next week. Bye.